Hi, Mike. Brian Lyman here, Business 631, video journal number 6. This week I want to focus on culture and leadership. I think this is an interesting topic that, much like gender, that's going to continue to present challenges for our generation going forward for pretty much the duration of our professional careers, just due to globalization, specialization. The world's tending, I think, for information and travel, time is shrinking, right? So this is something that will be on the forefront for many years to come. Uh, I think culture is an interesting issue, and I think in order to be successful, there's really two keys, and that's one, indulge yourself in the culture, the environment, if you have the opportunity, and to listen. And the listen part to me is kind of interesting because this was alluded to in my servant leadership. Walk on story with the CEO of Popeye's Chicken alluded to the fact of listening as a key characteristic, and Brian Depweiss in our Wednesday class also alluded to the importance of listening to your followers and the people around you. I think that's a really good way to understand the needs and the motivations of the people around you, and I think that's an important piece of understanding cultural issues, right? I think Melissa presented the chart with different characteristics of different cultures, and I think that's great if you have few resources going in when you're getting into a situation like this. But I've found through work experiences one of the best ways to learn more about a culture, understand needs and motivations, is to talk to your peers, to your coworkers around you, especially if you work in a larger organization. Generally, there's somebody that has some sort of experience with it. And for me, I don't work a whole lot with international folks, but we are, an automotive supplier. We sell to all the major OEMs around the world, and I tend to work with the processing and assembly equipment for a lot of our European customers. So there's times where they come in for an audit, or they need to go on a tour or something like that, or they have specific questions on how we build the product, and there's times where I need to interact with them. And I found that by working with the program managers and the quality engineers that interact directly with the individuals from Europe, that's very helpful. And we're lucky in our organization, we've got a sales office in Erlenbach, Germany, that works very closely with our European customers. So that's helpful. I've found that I can kind of bounce ideas and items off of those guys in Erlenbach, and they can kind of give me a feel for if this is something that our customer would be willing to accept or not. So I think it's key to listen and talk to the people around you to understand the needs of other cultures. And along with that, I think I've identified maybe some key differences in some of the cultures we deal with. For example, I found a lot of times with the Europeans that maybe a little bit more open to innovation, technological advancement, right? Whereas we also have a lot of Asian, specifically Japanese customers who maybe a little bit more accustomed, or their strategy is a little bit more continuous improvement and taking small advancements and not those big leaps. And I found that influences my behavior and the decisions I make, right? Because a lot of times I'm developing this equipment or the process, and I know that if this production line, for example, is being built for primarily European product, that I have some different options as far as automation and technological systems that I can implement. And I know a lot of times that that will please the customer, whereas if on the other hand, if we were to do that for maybe a Japanese customer, they would be more displeased, even though it may be more efficient for us and we may be able to build a more efficient or more higher quality product at a cheaper price. It's culturally outside of their norms, so they tend to get kind of skittish around that. So I think it's interesting and very important to understand the cultural norms and expectations of different groups, and listen to the people around you. And going back to, if you have the opportunity, indulge in it. I think much like anything, whether it's cultural or right in your own community, I think it's very important. And the best way to learn is to go indulge yourself, surround yourself with the situation and the challenges. So, like for me, for example, I've never been to Europe, but that's something that's in my 18-month plan. Is I want to go to Europe on a personal trip to understand the culture a little bit more, and hopefully I can translate that back into my professional and leadership activities just by going there and understanding and meeting people and seeing it firsthand. I think there's no replacement for that. Obviously, you can read a lot and get ideas from coworkers through communication, but the best option is to go see it. And just to speak a little bit more onto some of the other cultural challenges, I think is obviously language barriers and just different ways of doing things. In some other experiences I've had, we had a couple production lines in China for a short period of time, and this is an interesting one because we built the equipment here in West Michigan. We sent it over there. We sent some resources over to start it up, and then kind of let them run it. And it wasn't uncommon from time to time to come in the morning, and obviously we're on different sides of the world, so the time zone difference is huge. They're working when we're sleeping, and vice versa. And come in the morning, and there'd be some sort of issue, technical issue, and this email chain would start, excuse me, about some issue they had with their equipment, and it it's very challenging sometimes to solve these technical problems when there's this cultural and language barrier, right? So just the semantics and the vocabulary is significantly different, and I found that especially in a technical field, we use a lot of slang or words that can have many different meanings. Then you translate that, and it translates into something that's not necessarily applicable. So I found a lot of times where these email conversations would be going back and forth, and someone would be translating, and there wasn't a lot of efficiency. So then uh, I would have to utilize sometimes a third party where uh, I would get an email or correspondence between this engineering manager in China, and then I would have to go to someone in our organization that understood the technical side of it, but also could understood the Chinese cultural side of it and could translate and then be that liaison to communicate my needs or my thoughts on it back to this person in China. So it's very important, I think, to ping the resources around you and put yourself in that situation and try to think of what the challenges are that they're going through. I think this is a good example where building the equipment here was maybe what we thought was best, but it created a lot of challenges because we don't necessarily build the equipment in the same way they would or the same way they expect to use it. So right there, that cultural gap has created consternation, within our organization. So I think it's just interesting topic, and I think it's something, like I said, that's going to continue to create challenges for our generation going forward. And I'm hoping I haven't really had a lot of experience with cultural leadership per se, more these individual instances that I think have shaped and really kind of opened my eyes to the different challenges there are. And hopefully, when I get into a more culturally diverse leadership position, I can apply some of these learnings and it'll make the transition a little bit smoother. So, once again, I think this is very useful, and hopefully, I can utilize this tool in the future on other projects. So, thanks. Have a good week.